Like the locusts that attacked the people of Egypt in the biblical days, so has the destruction been across our farmlands with the invasion of fall armyworms. Despite repeated assurances from officials that the invasion is under control, farmers continue to reel under the pressure of these novel pests devouring their crops.
Initial stage of the infestation, it may look to be like the ordinary ordinary worms that do affect our crops. But get to the later stage, you realize they destroy everything, unlike the armyworm, the ordinary armyworm, which do affect the maize. But this one, they infest and destroy everything.
My name is Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, and in this edition of Hotline, Christian Rampaging Soldiers, I take you on a tour of some farming communities to assess the level of damage that these pests have caused to fields and how farmers are struggling to recover. Additionally, we will be asking the question about how this would impact government's flagship Planting for Food and Jobs policy. I continue my tour to Dentre Wawase in the Heman Lower Dentra district. I meet Deborah being a mother of 3. Deborah has been farming for more than 20 years now. She educates her children and feeds their family through this profession. But this has been a terrible season for her. She has lost the more than 1,000 cedis she invested in the fields at the start of the planting season.
No. I have lost a 2-acre farm.
More than 2 acres farm, no.
I invested about 100 cedis in fertilizer and other inputs. This is money I will not be able to recoup. We have made a loss. We will weed and replant the fields and see if we will get anything.
Planting for food and jobs.
When our Greek minister, Dr. Akoto Owusu-Afriye, addressed the media over the invasion in May, he announced a 16 million cedi intervention under which all affected farmers will benefit from a free mass spraying exercise. But on the ground, the situation is different. You know about how many farmers in this community have been affected?
More than 500 farmers. Okay. More than 500 farmers.
But are there some of them who have still not received the chemicals?
Oh, yes, yes. About 1/3. Okay. More than 1/3.
These female farmers at Junkwa, Inform in the Central Region, tell me they are also yet to get access to government-free chemicals being distributed.
If
we are able to get some of the chemicals to use on the farms, the fields will look better. I bought some of my own from the store for about 600 cedis and used, but still the pests are on the field. The pesticide that government brought to this community, we didn't get some. So a man here showed us a place at Hemang where we bought some from. We have applied the chemicals on 4 different occasions. If government helps us with some of the chemicals, we will be happy.
Frank Abwaje is a Greek Extension Officer here. He confirms more than 100 farmers in the area whose fields have been destroyed have not benefited from government intervention.
We took a list to Cape Coast 2 weeks ago. We are still waiting for the chemicals, although nearby communities have received theirs.
In the Central Region, 19 districts have been affected by the destruction caused by the fall armyworms. Frank Abwaji says they were taken by surprise.
We were expecting the pest during the minor season, so we would usually spray during the minor season. But we've never seen pest invasion like this during the major season. We want to advise government that next time they should get enough chemicals in stock so we are not caught pants down.
As at the end of May, official statistics indicated more than 365 hectares of farmlands have been destroyed in the Ashanti region.
As of last week, the reported incidence was low, but it is beginning to grow. Nonetheless, we have received some chemical, thanks to the swift action from the ministry side in Accra. We've received, as of yesterday, we had received close to 4 truckfuls of pesticides, which we are distributing. I'm sure if you go out, you'll notice that the district directors are taking consignments out there for the spraying gangs that have been formed in the various districts to carry out the onslaught on the pests.
Listen to these cocoa farmers in the Adjacent municipality speak of how they discovered the pests.
Last year, bana enye bibre said this year.
We saw the pests last year, but this time around, they are just too much.
Last year, no Maku be near expectation. We quite be a do can never corner the other. We know the TVT 40 bars. Yeah, SMS repeat 40 bars.
I'll usually harvest about 80 bags, but this year it's likely I'll only be able to harvest 40 bags.
80 bars say every year. But a one 40 into 40 penny.
In the eastern region, more than 1,583 hectares of farmlands have been destroyed by the pest.
The rate at which the infestation happened over the region, we were very much alarmed. Yeah, but since the chemical came in and we have started spraying, I know it will work because farmers who are well off and were able to buy the recommended pesticides and have sprayed, we've been to their fields and we've seen that the infestation is almost...
Because we heard some of them complain that they bought chemicals and used and it didn't change the situation. How come?
Some didn't consult the extension agents for the recommended pesticide. That's why they didn't work. Both those who consulted the extension agents, they were given the right pesticides, and based on that, they are having their problem solved.
Simon Akweso farms 10 hectares of corn in the Suhum Krabua-Kota district. His major headache is that these pests do not respond to the usual pesticides that they have been using over the years to control pests.
The agric officers here recommended some chemicals for us to go and buy. I spent about 600 cedis buying these chemicals on 2 different occasions, but nothing has changed.
At least 500
Dr. Michael Osei-Edu of the Crop Science Department at the University of Cape Coast explains why it is so.
In fact, to be able to control them, 3 things I believe are critical. How they move, how they breed, and how they feed. If you don't understand how they move, how they breed, and how they feed, then their control becomes very difficult. The other thing that I didn't mention was they quickly develop resistance to chemicals, to pesticides, to insecticides. They quickly develop resistance. So if you think that this is working and you keep applying, within a short time they evolve and develop resistance to it. So, and that is why their control has become quite difficult.
In the Brangahafu region, more than 14,200 hectares of maize fields have been destroyed by the pest.
112,000 hectares is the total land area cropped that has been affected. But being affected doesn't mean that the crops are destroyed. There are some that are affected and can be destroyed by just about 10% or 5% or even 1%. Some can be destroyed up to about 90% or even 100%.
Exactly, so that then anyone will be alarmed if up to 6%.
From the estimations, we realized that about 6% were completely destroyed. About 6%. That is why we considered that individual farmers might have food security crisis. But overall, we might even be better than previous years because This year, the rain is delayed, but those that have set in now are promising. And then our program of subsidized fertilizer and planting for food and jobs, that is helping the people to get improved seeds and fertilizer, is also ongoing, and it is very, very robust. So I even think we might even be better than previous years.
Mainly the concern has been that earlier, sometime in April, March, April, we were told about 1,400 hectares. By June, the figure had gone up to 25,000 hectares. Now we're hearing the 112,000 plus. Isn't this an indication that it's going out of hand in terms of how fast it's spreading?
Well, that is the nature of the worm, and it is alien to Africa. You realize in my answer, we indicated that it's a native of the North and South America. So it is very alien to us, and so our technocrats are now learning.
But the big question is this. So far, what has the 16-member task force set up by Sector Minister Dr. Owusu-Afriyie to halt the spread been doing over the last few months that has allowed the invasion to extend beyond control?
We have prepared a budget of 16 million Ghana cedis. A budget of 16 million Ghana cedis, half of which is to go into the purchase of the chemicals required to spray for the control and annihilation of the outbreak of the worm.
Okay, first, I wouldn't fault the government for having initiated something. It's good. But as is always the case in Ghana, most of the interventions or the policies or initiatives are quite ad hoc. So, and this one, it seems to me it was more of a panic response. So we have not necessarily taken the three things that I pointed out earlier. That's what I believe. I pointed out earlier into consideration. Did we actually think about how the pest breeds, how the pests move, and how the pest feeds before fashioning out the policy? Because if currently we are just giving chemicals to farmers to spray, has there been training to say that spray close to the evening or early in the morning? Because to spray in the afternoon is a non-starter because of how they're able to hide in the plant or how they are inactive and are hidden during the day. So the policy in itself, I wouldn't begrudge it. I wouldn't fault the policy in itself. But I think it has been a panic response. It's been ad hoc, and there hasn't been adequate plan into it. And if you're not careful, we're going to, because of the other thing that I mentioned, we're going to end up, those in Ghana are going to end up, they are going to cause them to evolve, and they're going to be resistant to the to the chemicals that we are using.
The fact is that it appears to me that they have rushed into a battle that they were not well prepared for.
When you say they are not well prepared for, what do you mean?
Yeah, in the sense that this is a worm that was little known about. They do not know its characteristics, they do not know the particular chemicals that are potent enough to deal with it, and then who has to deal with it? Is it just forming some gangs from Accra who would then move from region to region and looking for places where the army worm is to spray? All these things put together, for me, appears we did not position ourselves well to fight the army worm. And that is why, since then, we have not been able to contain it, and it has been making progress and invading more farms and so on.
Member of Parliament Food and Agriculture Committee Eric Osei-Owusu wants managers of the agri sector to set up and do more to bring the problem under control.
Well, definitely, armyworm invasion is such that if you don't treat it effectively, you stand the risk of it coming back, to attack the crops. And so I would say that in as much as, there's been some level of proactiveness in fighting it, we must be very conscious of it and, keep our eyes on the fields to make sure that if should there be any occurrence of them coming back, we'll fight it back and then make sure we do not endanger ourselves as far as our national food security is concerned. It is a very serious challenge for our crops or our farmers, I would say. And that is the reason why government should really be very proactive in fighting these things.
Experts say the damage this year is extensive because the insecticides applied last year could not kill the fall armyworms completely. Dr. Akoto Osuefriye is promising an end to the invasion this time around with the chemicals that have been imported into the country.
This year is reared its head since March, and there's been very close monitoring of the incidence of this outbreak. It has gotten to the extent that we have to take very sharp remedial action in order to stop the spread and not only stop it, but also eliminate the incidence from our fields.
But Dr. Michael Osayedu says this is not realistic.
From where I sit, elimination, I think, would be quite difficult. That would be the ideal situation. And if the officials has got the plan or the technical know-how and the ability to eliminate it, I'm all for it. I don't have any problem with elimination. But from the characteristics I earlier pointed out, in fact, the adult mold, they pupate underneath the soil surface. So they have this strategies and characteristics that makes it quite difficult to eliminate. But if we can do that, I sit on the fence on this one. Now that they are here, it's very, if not impossible, to get them out. Because to me, it's just axiomatic. It's just trying to follow logical reasoning that they like the subtropical, tropical environments, and they are here. And this is what they prefer. And so I think that the environmental conditions is going to cause them to persist.
A recent report commissioned by the UK government and undertaken by the Centre for Agric and Biosciences International, CABI, estimates Ghana may lose up to $163 million in 2017 as a result of the invasion. Across Africa, the loss will be $13 billion and will cause a 9% reduction in the continent's gross domestic product or GDP. Maize, which has recorded more than 80% of attacks by the pest, happen to be the country's major staple and is common food for many in the African sub-region. Predictions are that prices could double between the start and the end of 2017.
Definitely, this invasion of armyworm is going to decline production. That is why the Honorable Minister of Agriculture has set up a task force to do a nationwide spraying of this armyworm, because it's a threat to food security. Because the activities of this armyworm is so devastating. They can destroy a farm within a twinkle of within some few hours. They can bring down a whole farm. So definitely it is a threat to food security, which is also a threat to other agencies who are actually in charge of food security, like National Food Buffer Stock. So the minister or the government is doing everything possible to curb the situation, and the reports are very encouraging.
To avert such threat in future, Dr. Ernest Tay of the University of Cape Coast School of Agriculture is asking government to prioritize the buffer stock projects.
And the armyworm that is coming up now, if we have advanced in our drying, we've dried a lot and stored, we can at least be able to fight them head on and still have food at the back of our storage equipment. But if we don't have and we want to plant straight and still eat like they are doing now, it will get to a time it's very difficult. And mind you, this is not the first time a country is having a problem like the armyworm. Every country has its own, but the reservoir, they always have something dried. And you know, someone will say Gary is a poor man's food, but it's not, because it has been preserved well. You can store Gary for 2 years. And so it means that when you have problem with cassava and you have your Gary, you can fight that problem and still eat. If there's no food, how will you be able to fight your enemy? So it's the same principle that I want us to look at. Let's have more dried food, easy to package, easy to transport, and then we fight the others.
Acting Chief Executive of the National Buffer Stock Company, Manan Abdul Wahab, says they are doing exactly that. He admits the country's food security could be disturbed to a large extent as a result of the fall armyworm invasion.
What we have lost, we can still make up.
But how much exactly so far?
That we have lost, as you've indicated, it's about 18,000 hectares, which we are looking at. If it is a maize farm, then we are looking at over 70,000 bags of maize, if it is a maize farm. So it's not the best, and we are doing everything possible to keep the situation. And those farms have an opportunity to replant again after we have kept the situation. They have the opportunity to replant again.
The number of hectares that have been invaded continue to increase day by day. You know, we all started by saying that only some few thousands of hectares have been invaded, 5,000 to 10,000, and now we are over 100,000 hectares of farmlands that have been invaded by the armyworm. That is the true state of the situation on the ground. The fact that we are unable to control it, and the fact that it is destroying the core of our economy, the fact that it is also destroying the foundation upon which a new model of modernization and industrialization of our economy is based on, is critical. And if that foundation is shaken to its base, then of course it will be very difficult to realize the dreams that we have to modernize our economy and to industrialize our economy per the general policy framework of the government.
The first incidence of the pest was recorded last year in Africa and has since spread like wildfire to more than 20 African countries, including Nigeria, Burkina Faso, Kenya, among others.
The Plant Protection and Regulatory Services Directorate, which is supposed to be the national plant protection organization in this country, must be resourced to do its work properly. Because if the materials came through, a consignment of goods, if they were well resourced, they would have determined it at the ports before bringing it in. They would probably have, contained it at the ports. But now we don't even know how they got here. So the Plant Protection and Regulatory Services Directorate must be well resourced to do its work. And as part being signatories to the International Plant Protection Convention, there should be a surveillance team in place in the country. And all they would have to do is to regularly monitor pests, relate them to the conditions of the environment so that they can forecast whether these organisms, they are likely to be outbreaks or not, so that farmers can put plans in place to, manage them.
Environmental and climatic analysis of Africa show that the fall armyworms are likely to build permanent and significant populations in West, Central, and Southern Africa and spread to other regions when weather or temperatures are favorable. So how do we deal with them going forward? These agri experts have the following advice.
My advice to farmers, especially maize farmers, is that it should be very particular with the surveillance, because if you don't survey or monitor it well, you by the time you get to know that they have infested the field, the control, though you may control, still the yield will reduce. So I'm praying that, or I'm asking that from this time onward, every farm that has reached the 2-week stage, they should spray the chemical to control or to prevent the pests from coming there.
Government must provide logistics to the extension officers. It is very important because without the extension officers, farmers may not have the necessary information or even the logistics that are required, like the chemicals, to actually carry on this. Now, government will have to stretch out their hands to the research institutions, give them certain level of logistics. We have the Ghana Society of Ontological Group. They need to be involved. These are people who are well qualified. They are doing work for FAO and other organizations. So why can't they be involved in solving our own internal issues? Then we also need to work with chemical dealers, which is very important. Government needs to look on their book. How many chemical dealers do we have in the country? Are they adequate? If you go to Volta region, if you go to Brongahafo, if you go to Northern region, the chemical dealers, do they have access to distribution routes? Government will have to come in, because when there is a shortage of food crops, it doesn't only affect the citizenry, but it also affects government budgetary.
What we can do now is to use chemicals, but chemicals are not the best option. But because of the situation now, if we're able to bring it under control, then we can develop measures that will be more preventive than curative.
In the Southern American countries, they have resorted to the use of genetically engineered crops to deal with the problem, a move Dr. Michael Edu believes Ghana can consider.
Yes, I believe genetic engineering is something that we need to exploit. The Bacillus thuringiensis, the BT strategy, and it's not necessarily using the BT strategy is one that we can exploit, but also using biopesticides. Some of them actually produce from this BT products, where it becomes toxic for the pest. Those ones we cannot, as a country, we are very serious about our food security, we cannot continually and forever run away from genetic engineering. It holds potential for us to exploit. But before, first of all, we need to put the structures in place so that we can monitor, we can regulate it, so that we only enjoy the positive that it offers.
One thing is certain, the fall army worms are here to stay. We can only hope that agricultural officials on the continent will get on top of the situation before it gets any worse. For Hotline, my name is Joseph Opoku Gakpo.